Okay, perfect. So my name is Tash Hetkowski. I'm the Senior Manager of National Events at CF Canada. And today I'm going to do your training on the walk finance and registration. So I'm going to share my screen, and I have a PowerPoint that I'll go through, as well as some documents that I'll share, and just to familiarize you guys with these documents ahead of time before you see them in person on walk day. Feel free to stop me along the way. It's obviously a small group, so any questions along the way, and we can get you trained. So I'm going to share my screen here. Can everyone see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, excellent. Okay, I'm gonna put this into presentation mode. There we go. Okay, so here we are. Obviously, my goal today is for all of you to leave this training feeling comfortable and confident on how to submit walk day funds. So I'll go through the agenda and chat about what we're going to cover, and then we'll dive into it. So we're going to talk about what you're going to need to do and receive pre-walk, your registration table and what that will look like on walk day specifically, accepting pledge forms on walk day. So there's two different types of pledge forms, a pledge form with a waiver and the second pledge form, which is without the waiver. What to do with cash on walk day, what to do with checks and credit cards on walk day, filling out the walk day totals form, making the deposit and some tax receipting information, sending in the pledge forms, filling out the delivery control sheet, sending your final email at the end of walk day, and then I'll do a final recap on, which will really just summarize what I just went through, but in a much shorter and more concise way. And then I'll talk about the do's on walk day and the don'ts on walk day. And then obviously we can chat at the end if you have any outstanding questions that I didn't cover throughout the training. So I'm going to dive right in here and we'll get started. So the items that you're going to receive ahead of time are going to be an RBC night deposit key letter. So all coordinators and volunteers will receive a letter. It's actually on SharePoint already. And then before walk day, it's going to be your responsibility to find the nearest RBC branch. And what you'll do is you'll print out this letter and you'll bring it into them. And you can ask to speak to anyone. And then what they'll do is they'll know exactly what it's for, and they'll bring you a key, and that key is so that you can make a night deposit after the bank's hours are closed. So I'm gonna show you what that actually looks like. So this is what the letter looks like. You can bring it into any RBC branch and they'll know exactly what to do. Okay, so go back to my presentation here. Okay, then you're also going to receive a finance package in the mail. So in this package, you're going to have a prepaid envelope with CF Canada's address on it. And then you're also going to have a night deposit bag and deposit slips with your chapter's GL codes written on it. So GL code is like an internal code that we use at CF Canada, and that helps us determine where, make sure that the money is going to the proper chapter. You don't really need to worry about that. That's just for us to reconcile once we receive the deposit from the bank. So you'll receive that ahead of time. All of them are already in the mail. They're en route to you, so you will be receiving those before walk day. And then items you should print off ahead of time. So we have pledge forms with waivers, pledge forms without waivers. So the pledge forms without waivers are the ones that are on the walk website. I'll actually just show you quickly where on the website they are. And I'll also put them into SharePoint. So if you go to fundraising tools, you'll see a 2022 walk pledge form. And then this one is the one without the waiver, but the one with the waiver will be on SharePoint as well. You're going to print out a walk day totals form and a walk delivery control form. So I would suggest printing 3 of each. That's just in case you make a mistake. Also, you'll see later that a certain copy has to go with this package and this package at the end of the day. So we'll get to that. Any questions about that so far? Okay. So let's chat about your registration table.
Pretty straightforward.
Okay, excellent. So you're all set for walk. you show up on walk day, all your volunteers are in place. I'm going to walk through the different scenarios that can happen at your registration table. So if somebody has already registered and you find them on your registration list, they have no pledge forms or cash or checks to submit, you can just check them off your registration sheet and send them on their way. Have a great day. That's the ideal walker on walk day. So then the other two are what we'll cover in this training. So some people may attend the walk who have never registered. They haven't signed up online. And so they need to register on walk day. So what's going to happen is they need to fill out the walk pledge form with the waiver. And you have to ensure that the waiver is signed before they can partake in the day. And then the third option, which might also apply to option 2, so somebody might not have registered, and option 3. So participants are going to show up. Some will have already registered, some will have not, but they'll also be coming with offline donations. So that'll be cash, checks, and pledge forms. So I'm going to walk you through that process now. This is where I'm going to really try and take things step by step, but there's a lot of information here. So please do stop me if you have any questions. So let's start with accepting pledge forms on walk day. So when a participant hands you a pledge form with cash, check, credit card filled out, it's very important that the volunteer asks the participant who just handed them the pledge form to remain at the table until they've signed off on the pledge form. You don't want them to walk away, because in case you have questions, you can't read something, you need more information about something, it's really important that they're at that table for you to answer those questions. So what the first step the volunteer is going to do is they're going to check the pledge form and make sure that it has all the necessary participant information to credit card donation, necessary to credit the donations to them. So to make sure that they get a tax receipt. So first name and last name is mandatory. If they have a team name that they want to associate their funds with, and their personal page name, as well as their walk location. We're going to be getting pledge forms from all over the country, from 50+ walks. So it's really important that your walk location is clearly stated on each pledge form. Then you're going to check that all of the donors who are expecting a tax receipt have the proper information and that it's legible. So even if a donor is asking to receive a tax receipt via email, the CRA mandates that we have a mailing address for that donor in Canada. And then we'd also like a phone number in case there is an issue with the donation, as well as an email address, and that would often be given if they're expecting a tax receipt via email. So those are the mandatory items in order to give a donor a tax receipt in Canada. Then what's going to happen is the volunteer is going to count the cash to make sure that it matches the amount that's been written down on the pledge form. So if Tash, am attending the walk and I hand in a pledge form that says, my mom, Jane Doe, donated $50 to me, the volunteer is going to just look and see, okay, $50 cash, and they're going to check and double and make sure that $50 cash has come in with that pledge form. If the pledge form is short cash, this needs to be communicated with the walker/participant at that time. It is the walker's responsibility to fix the discrepancy. You cannot obviously come up with money that wasn't given to you. So at that time, they either will have to give you additional money or they'll have to change the donor information. It's the walker's responsibility to sort that out, which is, again, why it's very important that the walker remain at the table while you're looking through everything. Then you're going to count and double check that all of the checks are issued to Cystic Fibrosis Canada, and that the information on the pledge form matches the donor information and the amount given on the check. So if the check is made out to someone else, oftentimes people will make it out to the team name, to the personal page. There's a couple options here. So ideally, if the person, the walker who's giving you that pledge form is still standing there and they say, oh, my grandma's actually here, I can just get her to come over and she can initial it and fix it to make it out to Cystic Fibrosis Canada. Ideally, that would happen. Obviously, if it's made out to like a team name and the donor is not at the event, we just need to make sure that we have the donor's information so that we can follow up with them after the walk. So we need their phone number and then at least their first, last name and email so that we can call them and say, hey, thanks so much for donating. We see that you donated $50 to Tash. Unfortunately, you made the check out to Tash's team instead of Cystic Fibrosis Canada. Would you be willing to mail another one, or would you like to make the donation over the phone? So there's a couple things that could happen after the fact, but we just need to make sure that we actually have the donor's information to follow up in that instance. And then What you're also going to do is double check that, say I've written down now I have cash from my mom and I have a check from my dad and a check from my grandma, that the two checks that are outlined on the pledge form match the checks that are with the pledge form. So if one's for 100 and one's for 50, you have two checks that match those same amounts. Okay. Then you're going to check that all the credit card donations have a 16-digit credit card on them, unless it's an Amex, in which case there will be 15, and we do accept Amex. And then we need the expiry date for that credit card as well. And we also need the name on the credit card so oftentimes the donor name would be different than the name on the credit card. Make sure that that is asked and that that's filled out accordingly. We do not need the CVV number. So that's the number on the back of the credit card that often you have to use when you're making an online donation. So we don't need that. So that's what the volunteer at the pledge form or at the registration table needs to go through. Obviously, that's a lot of information and they have to have a very high attention to detail. There's a lot going on in those pledge forms, but that's kind of the walkthrough of that. I'm going to keep going here and then we can stop for questions if there are any. So when a participant hands a pledge form they're going to check all the necessary information. And once you've verified that the cash and checks did come in, the volunteer is going to they're going to sign off on the pledge form. So they're going to say, oftentimes what you'll have is like, there's a bunch of people counting money separately than the people who are standing at the registration table. And it's helpful sometimes to have, say, I would put my initials there. And then that way, if there was a discrepancy by the time it got to the money counting station or table, they could come back to me and ask me, hey, do you remember this pledge form? Is there a reason looks this way, or do you know what this says? Something like that. So what you would do is you'd say, yep, the cash matches, yep, the checks match, and yep, looks like the credit card information's there and all the donor information's there. I'm going to sign TH. And then what's going to happen is you're going to separate the cash from the pledge form. So all of the cash will be put into one pile. From all pledge forms will be put into one pile. But then it's very important to note that the checks do not leave the pledge form. So the check will be stapled to the pledge form and the cash will be separated from the pledge form. And then one last thing I'll say is do not process any credit cards for donations on site. All of the credit cards that are outlined on the pledge forms will be processed once they get to our head office. And then that way we can ensure that they get the proper tax receipt that they need. But if you do process them on walk day, we can't guarantee that they're going to get a tax receipt just because we don't have all of it. Would be a bit of a nightmare reconciling. So that's kind of the overview. Next, I'm going to chat about pledge forms. So I'll stop and pause. I can see, I think that Kim's hand is up if you wanted to ask a question, Kim.
Yes, just a quick one. I was just curious to see what would happen if the pledge address given for the receipt will be different from the one from the credit card. Do we need to write both of them down?
Yes, ideally. So, oh, you mean the billing address for the credit card?
Yeah, I know sometimes to process the credit card, you need to have the billing address attached to it. And obviously it can be different from the one given for the receipt. So I just wanted to see if we needed both, or if that was a non-issue.
That's a good question. I don't actually know the answer to that. I've never actually run into that issue. I think for some reason, the way we process it, we might not need the billing address, but obviously if we get to a point when we're processing them, we would probably just call the donor. That's why having the donor's phone number is so important. It's a really good question.
If we're processing them on point of sale machines at head office or online, you probably won't need the billing address.
Yeah, exactly. So those, we do them through Moneris online. So I think you're right about that.
Yeah,
for sure.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Great question though.
Question.
Yep.
We've been doing our walk for 15 years. So I've been doing this for 15 years and I have like a huge amount of like legal sized weight envelopes. And I usually have them put the cash in one, put the checks in the other. And then eventually it comes back to me because I'm inputting on the computer right there at the walk. So is that still okay? Because it's much easier to do it because then when we count, the cash does all go into one, but we're double checking the forms again.
It's up to you. If you've been doing this for a few years and you obviously know what you're talking about.
Yeah, actually it might even be 17 years. How many years has they been doing it? We're one less.
Yeah. It's totally up to you. I would suggest stapling the check to the pledge form like right at that moment, just in case, say there
Well, the
is,
checks, I like them put in an envelope because we double check again.
and then you staple
We're
them
double
after that.
checkers. We're crazy double checkers down here, so we just always
And
do it.
then-
So when we do the final count to get the money for the deposit and and get the forms all together to be mailed out. And then I generally put them in an envelope because I don't like stapling through checks. And then stick them to attach them to the pledge form. So like it's the
So
same.
you would put all of the checks in one envelope and attach them to
And
all of the
the
pledge
cash
forms?
would be in another envelope, or it would be in a baggie until we count it, and we'll staple those to the pledge form. So
So
we know
you,
which
sorry,
goes to which.
I just want to clarify before I give an answer.
Sure.
You can do whatever you need to do while you're doing your double checking process, but before they come to CF Canada, the pledge forms do have to be stapled to their
They
appropriate
will
check.
all be done. Yeah.
Perfect. Then absolutely do
No
whatever
one's ever
system.
complained about my
Perfect.
things coming in. They're always done.
Perfect.
So,
No
you know,
problem.
they're-
You can.
It will be attached and everyone will know.
Okay, then that's great. No problem. I just want to make
Okay.
sure that others might not watch this recording and say, oh, okay, so I don't have to. No, they have to be stapled when you.
Unfortunately, we're in a location that we do not have all the safety places there, so the money's taken away.
Totally.
Like when we do the final count, it's taken away and then we do it, and then it,
I
because
totally
the
understand
bank's
that.
not close, everything's not close
I
to where
know.
we are.
For sure. I totally understand that.
Because
So
Niagara's at a zoo.
totally. So you can do whatever process works for you, but for anyone who's watching or tuning into this recording at a later time, you must staple the check to the pledge form before
It
you
will be
mail it to
stapled.
CF Canada. Okay,
Yeah.
great. Perfect. Okay, I'm going to move along here and we'll go through how to fill out the pledge form, sorry. So this is the pledge form with the waiver. You can obviously see the waiver on the right side here. So if a participant hasn't registered online, we need them to sign here. We need their first name, their last name, ideally their mailing address, their email, and their phone number. This means that we can actually put them into our system after the walk as a walker. If they belong to a team, it's very important to provide their team name here, or else we won't be able to attribute their donations to this team afterwards. So this is a really important piece. And then we also have the participant language, of course. This is important for us because when we do follow-up communications in the coming year, we need to know which preference they have. Are they a Kin Canada member? Yes or no? And then obviously this information is important if they are coming with any children under the age of majority. They don't have to fill out a whole separate pledge form for them, but they do need to put the information here. And if they are filling out the children's section, they have to also sign the parent guardian spot, which means that they're signing on behalf of their children. And then ideally, if they have the time and if they have the patience, we'd love if they could fill out any of the demographic information at the bottom. That helps us understand who attends our walk, helps us when we're looking to get sponsors in the coming years. So just important information for CF Canada to have if the participant is willing. Then we have the pledge form without the waiver, and this is the pledge form that people will fill out when they are bringing in cash checks and credit cards. So obviously up here, it's important that we have the participant name and the team name. That's how we're going to figure out if we're attributing the donation to the teams and the participant. Obviously all this information up here. But then when we get to the donor information, I kind of already covered this, but I'll just show you where it goes. So first and last name would go here, the street address here, city, province, postal code. If they are donating by credit card, the 16 digits would go here. The expiration date would go here, their phone number and their email address. Here is where you would this is where you would like check what they're giving. So if somebody's giving $50 via credit card, you'd fill it in on this spot. Somebody's giving $100 via cash, you'd put it in the middle column. And if this person was giving $30 via check, you'd put it in this column. Then we need the donor to indicate if they want it by print or electronically, so sent via email. If the donor does not check this off, we do not give tax receipts. So it's really important that they choose print or electronic. And then down here, oh, sorry, then you would total all of the donations. So if there's only one credit card, you would just carry it down. Obviously, this oftentimes on walk day, if you're reading and you're counting and it's not matching up, don't use their totals. Maybe do the math again. Sometimes there can be a discrepancy there. And then I'm going to cover this bottom corner, but I don't want this to confuse anyone. You won't see this very often on walk day, but you might. So this would be an instance in which the donor, or sorry, the walker is choosing to pay for the cash donations themselves, but the donor is meant to be receiving the receipt. So I would put my name here, my credit card number, the amount, expiry date, what kind of credit card, and I would sign here. And then you would have to, the walker would have to make a note here. So cash, paying with credit card, paying with credit card, paying with walker credit card. So that's how we would know. And so this is the donor information pledge form, I would say, and this is the really important one, that the more information we have from all donors, the better in every case. And then one last thing, which I don't feel I touched on enough yet, is just making sure it's legible. Obviously, everyone has different handwriting, and obviously people have different abilities to read different people's handwriting. But chances are, if you and the person beside you at the registration table can't read what's on a pledge form, our team here won't be able to as well. So that's a big piece of the registration table. So those are the two pledge forms. Does anyone have any questions about those? Okay. They're pretty straightforward comparatively to like previous years. So, and both of those will be available on SharePoint as well. Okay, I kind of already covered this, but I'm going to go into some more detail, but I'm going to talk about what to do with cash on walk day. Oh, actually, quickly, 1 second. When you have walkers who are showing up and they are registering and they're filling out this page, it's important that you, if it's just a registration and there's no donor information, you can keep those pledge forms together because we will enter them into our system as walkers. If they do have donor information on the backside, maybe indicate that registration is on the front of that. That way we'll know that we need to enter both the registration as well as the donor information. Because oftentimes you'll just get walkers who are already registered online who fill this front page out, but really they actually we don't need to enter them again into our system. So if you could indicate that, that's really helpful for our team as well. Okay, so we've already kind of gone through this, but what you're going to do is you're going to count and summarize all of the pledge form cash on walk day. So typically, once you've confirmed the pledge form, you separate the cash. As Joanne said, she puts all of the cash in one envelope. Some places count at a table right next to it. Some people have a different room they're counting cash, and I know that all walk locations are different. But I just want to say that they should always be counted in private. So even if you have a registration table that's facing outwards to all of the walkers, and you have a table behind that's maybe further back, even that's more private than counting it in front of all of the approaching walkers. So just making sure that the spot that you're counting all of the sums of cash is separate, and that it's definitely not in like the way of people walking by and all that. That's important to note. There should always be at least 2 volunteers with the cash at all times. Even if somebody has to run to the bathroom, have another volunteer come and sit in for the one volunteer that's leaving. Just making sure that the cash is always with 2 volunteers at one time is really important. And then if you are moving the cash to a different area to count, please make sure that you have somebody walking with the money runner at all times. So 2 people with the cash, even if it's just moving from one table to the next, make sure that nobody's ever holding a big envelope of cash by themselves for maybe more than 10 seconds. And just, it helps, it just helps with security as well. So, okay, so then after you have moved the money to a secure spot to count it, it should be counted and double counted and verified by at least 2 volunteers, but most sites will have more than 2 people verifying the cash. And then what you're going to do is you're going to fill out the deposit slips accordingly. So each deposit slip has 3 copies. I actually have the deposit book here. There's 2 blue copies and a black copy. So the front blue copy is the main one, and then the back 2 are the carbon copies. And I'll explain what you're going to do with all of those different slips a little bit later. So you're going to fill out the deposit slip, and then it's important to note that there is no circumstance in which a check should be filled out on the deposit slip. There is a section for checks on it over here, but those should not be filled out. There should be no checks that are deposited with the cash. If checks are deposited with the cash, we will never see the donor information on those checks, and we will never be able to tax receipt them because they go straight to the bank. Okay, then I want to mention that if your walk is collecting cash from 50/50 draws or raffles or barbecues or silent auctions throughout the day, please make sure that you keep that cash separate, completely separate from the cash that came in with the pledge forms. So each site is getting at least 2 deposit slips. So you can make 2 separate deposits. And then each site's also getting 2 separate bags. So as long as you can keep that cash separate, that's really helpful for us. And then float money. If you've received float money, either it's your personal cash, or if you've received cash from CF Canada, we ask that you do not deposit the float money on walk day period. We want the float money to be kept completely separate so that we can ensure that we received it separately. And if it's mixed in with 50/50 money or pledge form donations, then it's going to be really difficult to keep track of that. So please do not deposit any of the float money along with the other deposits. If you do still have it after walk day, you can connect with your regional staff and they can help you give it back to us. So any questions about cash on walk day? Okay, excellent. So what to do with checks and credit cards on walk day? So I am being a bit repetitive, but I'm hoping that it helps everyone retain some info. So reminder that by the time you're sending all of your pledge forms into CF Canada, they should have their respective check stapled to the pledge form. You're going to count and summarize the checks from all of the pledge forms and make sure that you're going to keep that total amount on the walk day totals form, which I'll show you how to fill out in a little bit. Obviously, I've bolded and said it a million times, but do not separate them from the pledge forms. And then my last thing, I said it on the previous slide, but like do not deposit any checks with your RBC branch. Okay. Reminder, please do not process any credit cards on walk day. So unless you're using a POS machine on walk day for raffles and stuff like that, that's fine. But do not process any credit donations on walk day. If somebody approaches the table, the registration table though, and they say, hey, my mom's here with me, she wants to donate $50 to my, and she wants to pay with credit card. I would honestly just ask them to pull up their fundraising page on their phone, and they can make that donation that way, and that way they'll get their tax receipt right away. But obviously, if they want to make it via credit card and they don't want to do it online, then they will have to fill out a pledge form, okay? Once you have counted and summarized all of the credit card amounts from pledge forms, you're also going to write that down because you're going to be filling that out on the walk day totals form. And that's it for checks and credit cards, I think. Any questions about that? Okay. So this is the walk day totals form. It's pretty self-explanatory, but I'll just walk through it quickly. So you're going to put your walk location name up here. Ideally, you would put the same name that is on the walk website. So if you have a nickname for your walk site, we'd ask that you please use the site or the name of your site that's on the walk website. And then we're going to ask that whoever fills this form out is going to put their name here. That's in case we can't read your writing, we have any questions, we know who to follow up with and who was the one that was overseeing this process throughout the day. So then here you're going to fill out the total cash that was handed in with walk pledge forms. Then you're going to fill out the total checks that was handed in with all the pledge forms. And then the total amount of credit card donations that was handed in with all the walk pledge forms as well. Then this is where you would put other funds collected on walk day. So 50/50 draws, etc. That's what you would put here. This is where I would say to put, I would put a total of if you've received these funds from 50/50 draws, raffles, barbecues, if you've received them via cash and credit card, I would say to put them here together. And then obviously you're going to total these 4 rows and you're going to have the total of how much your walk site raised on walk day. This number is going to be very helpful for us to know how much we raised across the country on walk day. And then if you can do some estimating, these two rows would be helpful as well. So the total number of walkers on your walk site on walk day. Obviously, this is going to have to be an estimate. We know that you're not sitting around counting. Some people will be able to do that. Some people won't be able to. So if you could give an estimate of that, and if you could also let us know how many volunteers you had helping with your walk on walk day. That's just really important information for CF Canada to know in case we want to create an infographic that says in 2022, we had this many people on walk day, this many volunteers. I just think it's a good stat for us to have. And then of course, if there's any additional information that you want us to know about any of these items, please feel free to fill it in the box down below. So this is the walk day totals form. It's very important. I'll explain how you're going to send that into CF Canada in a little bit. But this is, I would say, one of the most important forms for us to receive from you after walk day. Okay, I'm gonna move on. Oh, sorry, this is the bottom of it. So it actually kind of explains what you're gonna do, which is nice. I'll do a recap at the end of this presentation that says how to send your final email. But what you're gonna do is once you've filled this out, you're either gonna take a picture, scan it, or photocopy it. Then you're gonna email it to walkdaymoney@cysticfibrosis.ca. And you're also gonna place one copy of it in the prepaid envelope, which I'll get to in a bit as well. And it kind of gives you the walkthrough here of what you need to do with this form. Okay, so making the deposit and some tax receipting information. So we've already been through the fact that you're going to receive the RBC letter ahead of time. You're going to scope out which RBC branch is closest to you, and you're going to figure out ahead of the walk day how you're going to be able to make that deposit. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the total cash from all the pledge forms. You're going to fill out that deposit slip, which we already covered. And you're going to place both the singular deposit slips, so one of the 3 deposit slips, as well as all of the cash into one night deposit bag. Then if you have fundraising activities that also raised cash, you're going to fill out a different deposit slip and put all the cash in a different bag. So you'll have 2 deposits. Some might only have the cash from the pledge forms, no problem. And you're going to put one of each deposit slip into the bag. And then I'll tell you what you're going to do with the rest, or I guess it says here, but the second one's going to go with the pledge forms in the prepaid envelope. And then the 3rd deposit slip is going to be yours to keep for your reference. Okay. And then what you're going to do, obviously, is you're going to seal up that bag. You're going to drive it to RBC and you're going to use your night deposit key and make the deposit at the end of walk day. So here's some tax receipting information we'll just go through. So typically we only issue receipts for donations of $20 or more. Anyone who donates less than $20 will only receive a tax receipt if they specifically request it. We do this just because obviously there's a cost to issuing tax receipts. And then all tax receipts will be issued by the end of August 2022. So that's 90 days. That's pretty standard for CF Canada. All donor information must be complete to receive a tax receipt. Obviously, if they don't have a mailing address or phone number, we can't even get a hold of them to figure out their mailing address. They're not going to get a tax receipt, unfortunately, which is why it's so crucial to make sure that information's there at the registration table. And then in the case that a donor does not want a receipt, it is helpful if they write "do not receipt" on it. It'll just save us the admin time of processing a tax receipt once we do process the pledge forms. So any questions about either of those items here before we move on? Okay. So sending in the pledge forms, I talked about how you will receive a prepaid Canada Post envelope in the mail with the deposit slip and the cash deposit bag. You'll see we've already pre-written CF Canada's address on it as the to address. So that's where it will be shipped when you put it in the mail. But what you do need to fill out is your own address in the sent from. So if this package is lost on the side of a road, it falls off a truck, and somebody doesn't know what to do with it, it'll either be returned to you or sent further onward to CF Canada. So it's really important that there's a return address that it can go back to in the instance that for some reason it can't come to CF Canada. And then obviously, once you've counted all the cash, made your deposits, you're going to place the following in your prepaid envelope. So all of the pledge forms, including the checks that are stapled to those pledge forms, a copy of your cash deposit slip. So you're going to take one copy of the one from cash donations. And then if you also made a separate deposit with fundraising activities, you're going to take one of that deposit slip as well. So you might have a maximum of 2. A copy of the walk day totals form, and then a copy of the delivery control form, which I'm going to go through in the next slide. So once you've sealed the envelope and written your address on it, you can bring it to any Canada Post office, or you can simply drop it in a mailbox. We've already prepaid for the postage on it, so it will just automatically come to CF Canada. So whatever's closest and easiest for you, drop it off at a post office or in any mailbox. Okay, I'm going to go through the delivery control form, which you'll also place in that prepaid envelope. So first and foremost, of course, we would like you to fill out the walk location, same as before, the location name that's on the website. Please let us know what day you put this package in the mail, just so we can keep track of that. And then you're going to tell us who put this in the mail, just in case we need to follow up with any questions. I think there's only a handful of walks that would need to use 2 different envelopes. So if you are sending more than 1 prepaid envelope, you would put that here. And then the total number of pledge forms that are in the envelope. So I know that's a bit of a pain to count, but it's important for us to know in case the envelope gets ripped open and say it comes to CF Canada and it's half ripped apart, we can see were any pledge forms lost along the way. So then what you're going to do is you're going to place this sheet in that prepaid envelope. We're also asking that you take a picture, the same as you did for the walk day totals form, and you're going to email that in your final email with the walk day totals form. So that way, if it does get lost in the mail, we still have an idea as to how many pledge forms were in there. We can try and maybe keep track of it. One last thing I'll say is that all of the prepaid envelopes do have tracking on them. So I don't think we've ever lost a prepaid envelope in the last 18 years. So this won't be the year it happens, but just in case, we do want you to take a picture of this form as well. Any questions about the prepaid envelope or postage or this delivery control form? Okay, great. So sending your final email, you're almost there. You're almost done walk day. I mean, all of the walkers have gone home, but you're almost done your duties for the day. So the last step is to send that email to walkdaymoney@cysticfibrosis.ca. The subject line to your email should be the name of your walk location and totals. So Sudbury walk totals, Regina walk totals, Dartmouth walk totals, you get the idea. And then we're looking for the final documents to be attached. So a picture or a copy of your deposit slip or slips, depending on how many deposits you made, a copy of the walk day totals form, and then a copy of the delivery control form as well. So there should be at least 3 attachments in every single email, maybe 4 if you've made 2 deposits. And then I'm going to go through a final recap if there's no questions about that. Okay, this is much more concise. This is kind of the cheat sheet of this entire presentation. So step 1, you're going to ensure all the pledge forms have the correct and legible information on it. You're going to count all of the cash, the checks, and the credit cards on all of the pledge forms and total them up. And you're going to staple the checks to all of the pledge forms, and then you're going to fill out a cash deposit slip for the donations. Then you're going to write your address on the prepaid Canada Post envelope. You're going to place all of the pledge forms stapled with their checks, 1 copy of each deposit slip, maybe just 1 or 2, a walk day totals form, and a delivery control sheet. And you're going to place all of these in your prepaid envelope, and you're going to mail this entire package to CF Canada on walk day. The sooner you can get it to CF Canada, the sooner we can start to process, and the sooner that your donors will get their tax receipts. Step 3, you're going to deposit your cash at your local RBC branch using your walk deposit key and the letter that you've previously used. And you're going to put the slip and the night deposit bag into that. So just a reminder that the deposit slip for the cash forms and another deposit slip will be separate. So maybe 2 deposits happen. And then step 4, you're going to send an email to walkdaymoney@cysticfibrosis.ca with the subject walk location totals. So Sudbury walk totals. That's going to include a picture or a scan or a photocopy of the deposit slip or deposit slips, your walk day totals form, and your delivery control sheet. Once you've sent that email, the day is complete. All of the things have been done to ensure that your donors will receive tax receipts. And then see if Canada can start to make announcements about how much was raised on Walk Day across the country and what our walk total is for the day. Any questions about that before I get into the do's and don'ts? Ev, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do. It's about the RBC key.
Yes.
So I guess at the end of the day, we're done by sending the email, but the following Monday, we'll have to go back to the branch to give the key back, right?
Yes, that's correct. So when you do receive the key from the RBC branch, they'll tell you like bring it in whenever you can during business hours. Obviously, if you can do it the next day, that's great. If you need a little break because the walk took it out of you, go on Tuesday, go on Wednesday. They're not going to be super concerned about it, just as long as it's there the following week. Yeah, great question. Okay, let's go through some do's and some don'ts. So do deposit your cash on walk day. It's important that that cash goes into the bank on walk day. We will begin literally reconciling it the next day. So if I have received an email that says we deposited this cash and then I give it to finance and finance says we can't find this deposit in our bank account, that's where we get a little concerned. So if you could ideally do it on walk day, that'd be great. Ideally, the same thing would go with your prepaid Canada Post envelope. If you can pop it in the mail, in a mailbox on walk day, that'd be great too, because obviously it's going to take a little bit for it to ship back to CF Canada. And then please send us your final email by letting us know your whole totals, and then we can announce the totals across the country. Some reminders of the don'ts. So do not process credit cards on walk day. Please do not combine your cash from pledge forms and cash from your fundraising activities into one deposit. Please do not deposit your float money at all on walk day. You can work with your regional staff to deposit it later in the week. Do not deposit any checks with the RBC deposit. Do not hold on to your cash or pledge forms or checks overnight. It becomes an insurance issue and it's a big liability for CF Canada. So if you could please put it in the mail and in the bank day of, that's great. And then do not include any previous fundraising totals in your walk day totals form. So I should have mentioned that, but no online fundraising totals are necessary. None of your sponsorship dollars. One other thing I should mention, you shouldn't need to be receiving any sponsorship dollars on walk day. And if you are, we need to make sure that we're acknowledging them separately and processing it as a sponsorship. So I would actually say to hold that back and work with your regional staff to make sure that that's processed separately as well. That's kind of it for the presentation. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. I mean, a small group with lots of concise questions and people who've done it before, that makes it a quick training and hopefully an easy to absorb training. So thank you guys for attending, and all of this information as well as this recording will be in the Walk SharePoint as soon as this is done. One last thing that just popped into my head that I want to mention is that we're going to be sending out a couple emails to walkers in the coming weeks. And in those emails, we're going to mention if you have received offline donations prior to walk day, it's important that you fill out your pledge forms ahead of time, that it'll make things much, much easier on walk day. So we will be telling people that on walk day, and ideally they can do that before they come. So that will be coming as well. Okay, seems I don't know. I thought I was frozen there for a second, but I don't know if you can still hear me. Anyways, thank you all for attending. I hope you have a great rest of your evening. And thank you for all of your hard work and dedication that goes into running a walk. I know it's a very, very big undertaking, so really appreciate it, and hoping for the best weather for everyone on walk day and that it goes smoothly for everyone. Thank you guys.
Dash.
No problem, Kim. Thanks, guys. Have a lovely night. Bye-bye.